Today we are going to talk about the United States of America and Canada. Canada and the United States, two massive neighbors sharing the longest undefended border in the world. On the surface, they might seem similar. English-speaking,
America will be a manufacturing nation once again.
Some elections are tougher than others. And you inspired me.
multicultural, and economic powerhouses. But dig a little deeper, and you'll find some stark differences in housing, crime, wages, immigration, healthcare, and even cultural attitudes. So if you're considering moving to one of these countries or just want to know how they compare, stick around. We're breaking it all down. The USA was formed after the American Revolution against British rule from 1775 to 1783. The Declaration of Independence was signed on the 4th of July, 1776, and the country was officially recognized in 1783 with the Treaty of Paris. The U.S. Constitution, 1787, established the federal government. In this period, George Washington became a military leader and first U.S. president. Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence. Benjamin Franklin was a diplomat who secured French support, and James Madison was the father of the Constitution. Canada was formed through gradual independence from Britain. The British North America Act, 1st July 1867, created the Dominion of Canada, uniting Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia. Over time, more provinces joined. Full sovereignty came with the Constitution Act, 1982. Sir John A. Macdonald became Canada's first Prime Minister and was the key in Confederation. Georges-Étienne Cartier became an advocate for French-Canadian rights. Queen Victoria approved the formation of Canada. Pierre Trudeau led Canada to full sovereignty in 1982. The United States of America, USA, commonly referred to as the United States US or America, is a country primarily located in North America. It stretches from the Atlantic Ocean on the east coast to the Pacific Ocean on the west coast, bordered by Canada to the north and Mexico to the south. With a land area of approximately 9.867 million square kilometers. The United States comprises 50 states and Washington, D.C., its capital city. The current president of the United States, POTUS, is Donald John Trump, who is the 47th president of the United States. Canada, another North American country, is the world's second largest nation by land area after Russia, occupying nearly half of the continent. It is bounded by the Pacific Ocean to the west, the Atlantic Ocean to the east, the contiguous United States to the south, and the Arctic Ocean to the north. Covering 9.985 million square kilometers, Canada consists of 10 provinces and 3 territories, with Ottawa serving as its capital. The current Prime Minister of Canada is Mark Carney.
My government will put into action our plan to build a stronger economy.
He is the 24th Prime Minister of Canada. You might wonder why Canada uses the term province while the U.S. refers to its subdivisions as states, and why the head of the United States is a president while Canada has a prime minister. Stay tuned, I'll explain this distinction later in the video. Did you know that Canada is a constitutional monarchy with King Charles III as its head of state? However, the Prime Minister is the head of government, and the Governor-General, who represents the King, is appointed by Canada's government, not the UK. Both the United States and Canada has English as their first language.
My proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker.
When we are united, we are Canada
But in
strong.
Canada, there is a second language, French.
Et en défendant la liberté et la démocratie toujours ici et ailleurs dans le monde. C'est vrai.
In fact, in some parts of Canada, like province of Quebec, French is their first language, while English is the second language, while in other provinces, French is the second language. Due to this, all prime ministers of Canada must be fluent in both English and French.
Mercier, chez libéraux, de ma voix. Those ministers who remained in their posts to serve Canada.
In population, the United States is a giant. With over 330 million people, it's the third most populous country in the world. Canada, on the other hand, has only about 40 million residents, smaller than California alone. This difference means the U.S. is more densely populated, especially in urban centers like New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago. Meanwhile, Canada has vast amounts of untouched wilderness, with most of its population clustered near the U.S. border in cities like Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal. One of the biggest concerns for anyone deciding where to live is the cost of living. Generally speaking, Canada has a higher cost of living, particularly in the cities like Vancouver. And Toronto. which rank among the most expensive in North America. Due to import costs, groceries are slightly more expensive in Canada than in the USA. Reasons being that the US has a massive agriculture industry. While Canada, being colder, relies on imports. Gasoline in Canada is also higher than in the US. However, healthcare and education are largely government-funded, offsetting some expenses. This is possible due to the high taxes. Utilities and internet are also more affordable in Canada, but speeds may be slower in rural areas. In the US, the cost of living varies widely. Cities like San Francisco and New York can be astronomical, while smaller towns and rural areas can be significantly cheaper. However, hidden costs like healthcare and student loan payments can make the US more expensive in the long run. In conclusion, if you want cheaper groceries and gas, the US might be the better option. But if you want those social services covered, Canada takes the win. When it comes to buying a home, both countries have skyrocketing real estate prices, but Canada takes it to another level. The average home price in the United States is around $420,000. In Canada, it's over $700,000. And in cities like Vancouver and Toronto, it's well over $1 million. High housing costs in Canada are driven by high demand for homes, limited housing supply, strict mortgage regulations, foreign investments, and immigration policies. Meanwhile, housing in the US is more affordable in states like Texas, Ohio, and Florida. But expensive in California, New York, and Washington. Additionally, lower property taxes in some states and less strict mortgage regulations make homeownership more attainable. Also, property taxes tend to be higher in the U.S., with states like New Jersey and Illinois having some of the highest in the world. But in Canada, affordability is a major crisis. Many young people simply can't afford to buy a home. One of the biggest differences? Healthcare. Canada has universal healthcare, meaning doctor visits and hospital stays are free for residents. The U.S. has a privatized system with high healthcare costs and medical debt. While Canadians pay higher taxes for healthcare, many prefer their system over the expensive and complicated insurance-based system in the U.S. Trade is the lifeblood of both the United States and Canada. As each other's largest trading partners, they exchange over $1 trillion in goods and services annually. But the relationship isn't perfectly balanced. The U.S. runs a significant trade deficit with Canada, importing $412.7 billion in goods and services, while exporting $412.7 billion in goods and services. The U.S. imported $349.4 billion, leaving a $63.3 billion gap. According to the U.S. Census Bureau and Statistics Canada, Canada, with a population of just 40 million compared to the U.S.'s 330 million, punches above its weight in trade. Its economy thrives on exporting key resources like oil, lumber, minerals, and agricultural products. Yet the relationship isn't always smooth. Trade wars have sparked tensions, with tariffs disrupting businesses on both sides. Political dynamics also play a role, as leadership changes in either country can shift trade and immigration policies. While the U.S. and Canada are strong allies, their economic ties sometimes resemble a rivalry. Despite this, their interdependence remains a cornerstone of North America's prosperity. In the end, the U.S. and Canada are bound by trade, a complex, sometimes contentious, but ultimately vital partnership. Both Canada and the U.S. are top destinations for immigrants, but their approach to immigration is very different. Canada has a points-based immigration system, prioritizing skilled workers, language proficiency, and education. This means immigrants arriving in Canada tend to be highly skilled professionals. The U.S., on the other hand, has a more complex and controversial system with more emphasis on family reunification, asylum seekers, and work-based visas. While the U.S. accepts more total immigrants, Canada accepts more per capita and generally has an easier path to citizenship. The green card lottery, long visa waits times, and changing policies make it more challenging to gain permanent residency in the U.S. Both the United States and Canada are multicultural societies, but their approaches to race and diversity couldn't be more different. The U.S. has a long history of racial struggles, marked by deep-rooted issues in policing, economic disparities, and political representation. Racial tensions are more pronounced here, with a legacy of civil rights activism and movements like Black Lives Matter. Hate crimes have also risen in recent years, highlighting ongoing challenges. Canada, on the other hand, is often seen as more inclusive. It promotes multiculturalism as a national policy, celebrating diversity in its laws and practices. Yet Canada is not immune to racism. Systemic issues persist, particularly toward Indigenous and Black communities. Both countries have faced police brutality, with lives lost and protests demanding change. While stricter laws have reduced these incidents, the scars remain. Canada's immigration system is structured to welcome newcomers more smoothly, giving it a reputation for being immigrant-friendly. But beneath the surface, racism exists. It's just quieter than in the U.S. In the end, both nations strive for inclusivity, but their journeys and struggles are far from over. Crime rates also tell a story. The U.S. has one of the highest rates of violent crime and gun violence among developed nations, with a homicide rate of about 6.5 per 100,000 people. Canada, while not crime-free, has a significantly lower homicide rate, less than 2 per 100,000 people. A key difference? Gun laws. The U.S. has over 390 million guns in circulation, more guns than people, resulting in about 45,000 gun-related deaths annually, including mass shootings at schools, concerts, and public gatherings. Canada, with stricter gun control laws, requires licensing, background checks, and mandatory waiting periods, leading to far fewer gun-related crimes. While both countries grapple with issues of police brutality and racial profiling, the prevalence of firearms in the U.S. exacerbates the frequency and severity of police-related shootings. Canada and the United States share many cultural influences. Sports, and food. but their lifestyles and values often set them apart. Canadians are known for their love of hockey, a more European-influenced culture, and a relaxed, community-driven way of life. The US, on the other hand, is all about American football, fast-paced individualism, and strong regional identities. Think Southern charm versus New York hustle. When it comes to lifestyle, Canada emphasizes work-life balance, outdoor activities, and access to vast natural parks. The US leans into a career-driven culture with longer working hours and a prominent consumer mindset. Even in entertainment, the differences shine. Hollywood dominates globally, while Canada's film industry is growing, rooted in Indigenous and French influences. And while the US is famous for fast food, Canada's cuisine carries a more European flair. Neither is better, just different. Whether it's the polite, laid-back vibe of Canada or the bold, fast-paced energy of the US, both nations offer unique ways of life. From the ice rinks of Canada to the stadiums of the US, culture and lifestyle reflect the heart of each nation, distinct, dynamic, and deeply rooted in their identities. So, which is better? For more captivating content, please like and subscribe to our channel. Also, remember to click the notification bell to stay updated and be the first to watch our latest videos.